busy. 4 a.m., I hit the gym. 4:32, protein smoothie. 5:08, save time and money bundling my home and auto insurance with Progressive. Wait, if I bundle and save time, what would I do then? Just sit here and reflect? Like, why am I qualified to influence anyone? And how those weights are hollow? And half of my followers are bots.
You could save time and money bundling your home and auto when you switch to Progressive. It's one less thing to worry about during your already busy day. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states or situations.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN. The Cubs and the White Sox both had Thursday off. The Cubs are home this afternoon hosting the Astros. 2-3 Jamison Tyone faces 5-1 Spencer Arrighetti. Cubs have been on a bumpy road, losses in 5 straight and 8 of 10. They've dropped out of the NL Central lead, now a game and a half behind Milwaukee. The White Sox begin a series at San Francisco. College baseball, Missouri Valley Tournament. Evansville beat Illinois State 6-3. UIC pounded SIU 11-1. Murray State over Indiana State 3-2. Southern Illinois bounced back with a 3-2 win over Evansville. Ohio Valley Tournament. Eastern Illinois beat Southeast Missouri 3-2. SIU Edwardsville 4-3 over Little Rock. Southern Indiana beat Southeast Missouri State 5-3. And Little Rock came back with a 4-3 win over Lindenwood. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters or condo with Progressive. I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
Replace Busch in the driver's seat. Brexton Busch is already known for his racing exploits. He won the Tulsa Shootout.
You know what you can trust? The protection you get when you bundle home and auto insurance with Progressive. You know what you can't trust? Everything else, apparently. Like when you...
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast, brought to you by KFC. This afternoon, partly sunny with a high near 72. Tonight, a slight chance of rain showers, then a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mostly cloudy with a low around 55. Looking ahead to Sunday, a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mostly sunny with a high near 78. Currently, it's 58 and overcast. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
Do you hear that? Asthma triggers are everywhere, from dust mites, pet dander, and pollen, to smog and smoke. An asthma attack can strike anywhere, anytime. Be prepared with quick-acting Primatene Mist. Clinically proven to open airways quickly. It's the #1 FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. Primatene Mist. Breathe easy again. Use as directed.
Hey, I've been thinking about replacing my windows, but I have no idea where to start. Isn't it a huge hassle?
Not with Window Concepts. We make the whole process simple, from your first consultation to professional installation.
Really? I always thought it would take forever and cost a fortune.
Actually, we offer premium, energy-efficient windows at affordable prices and even flexible financing options, including 0% for 18 months.
Okay, well, that definitely helps. But what about quality?
We've been a family-owned business for over 40 years, and we take pride in expert craftsmanship and honest service. Plus, our windows are designed to improve comfort and lower your energy bills.
So, you handle everything?
Everything! We start with a free consultation, give you a custom quote, and then install your windows with precision and care.
That sounds easy.
It is. Window Concepts, we keep it simple, no gimmicks, just great windows and great service.
All right, I'm in. How do I get started?
Call Window Concepts today for your free quote, and let's turn your dream windows into reality. Call 847-621-2688.
Fixed bayonets, comrades. This is Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt every Saturday, noon until 2 on WRMN 1410 AM. You can stream us on WRMN1410.com. And Matt's over here setting up our YouTube, the WRMN 1410 YouTube channel. You can watch us live. I got a big smile on, beard's gone. I'm looking good. You're looking good, Paul.
You are too.
All right. So, like I said, you call in here at 847-931-1410 or hit us up with a text at 505-926-1410 or just a comment in the YouTube live channel. Paul's already got a comment up there. Welcome Brandon to the show. All right. So, this week, we've been talking to about some really deep and important things. And kind of like I need a break. I need a soft breather. So today we're going to talk about patriotic and military holidays And of course, we all know this Monday is Memorial Day, which falls on the fourth Monday in May every year. Right, Paul?
That's correct, but it never used to be like that.
Can you give us a brief history of Memorial Day?
Yeah, Memorial Day started actually before it really started. And there's 5 interesting facts about Memorial Day. Right after the Civil War, on May the 1st, 1865, a bunch of free slaves in the Charleston, South Carolina area, 10,000 of them, felt really bad that the Union soldiers were put into a mass grave. So they dug them up and put them in individual graves. That's considered to be the first true celebration of Memorial Day on May the 1st, okay? Now, what we call Memorial Day was never called Memorial Day. It was called Decoration Day. And it was called Decoration Day by, of all things, an Illinoisan. There was an Illinois congressman and later senator named John Alexander Logan. And he was a Democrat. He was not part of Lincoln's party, okay? And he was also in Congress at the time of the first battle that was conducted with the Battle of Bull Run. Up until that time, everybody thought that the Civil War would be over in about 3 months. We've heard this story before, okay? And everybody went from Washington, they were on the Hill, and they saw that the Union was getting routed, okay? So he immediately signed up for the Army, and he was appointed an officer and later a general. And he actually commanded the Army of Tennessee at one time. Well, after the war, he resigned his Congress. He went back to Congress, and he became the first head of the Grand Army of the Republic, which is like really the first major veterans organization. Now, Logan had fought in the Mexican War. He actually didn't fight. He was in and he was in the Civil War. He fought in the Civil War. Well, when he became the head of the Grand Army of the Republic, he did General Order 11, which decreed that on May the 30th, flowers should be put on the graves where possible of all the deceased veterans from the Civil War. Now, May the 30th was important because that was the day when all the flowers considered to be in all the regions of the United States would be in bloom, okay? So the first, technically, Memorial Day was Decoration Day, and it was in 1868 on May the 30th, okay? Now, it always remained on May the 30th, and it was it was not a federal holiday. It was recognized by certain states. The first state to recognize it was New York, and that was in 1873. And then the rest of the northern states recognized it by 1890, okay? And then it became known also as Memorial Day unofficially in 1882. Now, during the Johnson administration, there was an effort to make what they call day holidays, so the American worker would have some free time to himself and his family. So it was included in a law in 1967 that Decoration Day and 3 other holidays would be moved to Mondays. And that would not be until 1971, okay? And they then changed the name then to Memorial Day. So it officially became Memorial Day with the first Monday holiday observance of Memorial Day, which was the 4th Monday in the month of May every year in 1971 by an act of Congress.
Nice.
Now, there's a couple of really interesting facts, okay? A couple of really interesting facts, okay?
Yep. Let's hear 'em.
Memorial Day began to be associated with the poppy, okay? And that was in 1920. Now, the way it was associated with the poppy was there's an American cemetery in Wargum, Belgium.
Yes.
That holds the dead of World War I from America, 368 poor soldiers, okay? And every year, beginning around 1920, the Belgian children would go to the cemetery and they would sing both the American anthem and the Belgium anthem. So it began to be celebrated in Europe on Memorial Day of 1920, 1921. Now, there is a recognition they sold poppies to pay for this. Now, two women, an American woman and a French woman in 1920, started with the red poppies. And then that became a very important coincidence with Memorial Day. And in fact, yesterday was Poppy Day in the United States. Now, do you know why the poppy became the...
I do.
And why is that?
Flanders Field.
That is correct. And that was...
the battlefield in World War I.
Right. It was, and it's very interesting because this has a lot of international ramifications, even though it's an American holiday. There was a Canadian doctor and officer, Lieutenant Colonel John McRae, okay? And he presided over the burial of a friend of his on May the 3rd, 1915. And that funeral was for Lieutenant Alex Helmer. And McRae was so put off by this. He wrote a poem, and it's called In Flanders Field. And if I might take a moment, I'd like to read it. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses now row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We're the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunsets glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from falling hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field. Now, they found out in Europe that when they plowed the grounds for the cemeteries, the only thing that grew out of the grounds were the red poppies. So that's why the poppy has been so intermeshed with the fallen soldiers and with the holiday.
So you see a lot of and Poppy Day, that's the weekend before Memorial Day. It's supposed to be weekend before Memorial Day weekend, when the Legion, the VFW, other veterans organizations who use the poppy, they produce these poppies and they solicit donations. They're not selling poppies. They're soliciting donations for the veterans organizations so that the veteran organizations can help veterans, can help people in the community, all right? And that's what they do. That's the significance of the poppy. So it's not just a bunch of old guys out there, shilling for money. Like you'd see, the guys with the sign on saying, "Oh, I'm a veteran and I'm homeless. Please give and help me out." A lot of the time, they just do that for sympathy. Maybe there's a couple of them that are actually veterans, right? And they should turn to the veterans organizations to help them out rather than being out there on the street corner, all right? But the ones that say that they've had these issues and they can't help themselves and everything. In my experience, none of them could give me a significant answer as to why they were actually a veteran. Like, what service were you in? Oh, I was a Marine. Oh, really? Where'd you go to boot camp? And then they'd say Fort Benning. Okay. All right. They might have some, what unit were you with? I'm not sure. What's your MOS? I'm not sure. So when you see those guys out there with the poppies, they're legit. They're legit. And they're collecting for veterans organizations, much like your I think Post 57's out here of the American Legion. So they're out there and they're trying to fund things. Like, we have a very small post. We don't even have a building. We borrow it with the community center. This is Post 104. You can check out our webpage, post104.org. We finally exceeded Florida, so it'll come up to us. Anyways, so our guys are, it's really, people don't carry change in their car like they did when the tolls were collecting money, and change was actually worth something, and now you can't get anyone to count the change for you. And some people don't even carry singles. All they do is carry your credit card. You got Apple Pay, you got everything. And we're not quite that high tech to collect donations, So, but the other organizations out there, they're doing that. We pay for a kid to go to Boys State, which is send a kid down state to a college down there where they stay for a week. This is a junior, between his junior and senior year of high school. And it's the world's most concentrated, most effective, and best civics course ever in the world, beyond anything else. 1 week where these kids learn unbelievable amounts of civics. Right? So that's cool. We fund, Girls State does the same thing, and we just had a poppy coloring contest with the kids in the school to help them with patriotic stuff, So they look at this stuff, they understand they kind of learn to understand what a veteran is, about the armed services, about service, about sacrifice, and then they make these little posters in honor of their the fallen soldiers, and then we give them an award for that, and that comes from money that we fundraise. So we're not like keeping the money and having big parties for ourselves and flying to, let's say we had a lot of money and we want to, get the best uniforms we can for the American Legion. And then on Memorial Day, we decide, we're going to go and fly out to Pearl Harbor and, have a big photo op of us dropping a wreath into the water above the USS Arizona. No, that's nice. That's a nice photo op. It's a nice gesture, but I don't think that's a proper way to spend money. More proper way is spending on the kids so they get the civic lessons, spending on veterans that have fallen on hard times, helping them out, providing programs for them. All right, so that's what the poppy sales are out there. Memorial Day is a very important holiday. And like you said, Paul, it wasn't even from the Republicans. It was from a Democrat, all right, that fought on the side of the North, right? And it all started out.
After the war and after Lincoln's assassination, he actually became a Republican.
Yeah.
And he actually became a U.S. Senator from Illinois, too, after that.
Yeah, so here's one man that starts this that I'm not saying steamrolled, but grew into a national holiday, a very important national holiday, a day of remembrance, not just Decoration Day, because out there, people are going to be putting flowers on on Memorial Day. They'll be out there putting flowers on the graves of veterans, that not necessarily the veterans cemetery, but veterans in other cemeteries. They'll go out, they'll see the veteran, and they'll put the flowers there. So it's good to remember that veterans die in the service of their country, and it's good for them to remember, because if no one ever remembers, then they cease to exist.
Correct.
It's like, So there's another holiday in May, which is kind of important to me, but it usually got, when we were in an AIT status, initial entry status, when we didn't have quite an MOS. We weren't a full-fledged soldier yet, fully qualified, everything else, ready to go to war. It was called Armed Forces Day, and it's the third Saturday in May. And believe it or not, sometimes they had us working weekends, right? But that was one day we didn't work. It was like we couldn't get off base, we couldn't do anything, but they usually have mandatory fun events on Armed Forces Day, which is cool, so that's May 18th. I think what's coming up now, right, is after Memorial Day, we have June 6th, which is not a national holiday, but everyone's going to see it D-Day. I think everyone still knows D-Day because they're still making movies about it. They're making another movie about D-Day.
Lucky, well, they're making a movie. I know about the Battle of the Bulge. That's coming out on I think June 26th.
Yeah, I have to look it up, but that Saving Private Ryan movie came out.
Yeah,
you had The Longest Day and a couple other things. The incident at Pointe du Hoc, and so what's important about that? Well, that there was a 3-year buildup, a massive 3-year buildup to that single event of crossing the Channel from Great Britain, getting a foothold in France, and then pushing on to Germany. And the largest seaborne invasion in Europe, I don't know if Leyte Gulf or something was bigger, but most troops hitting the beach and everything. So on a grand scale, it's something to be remembered. It's something that, you mess with us, and this is the power that we are able to project, given time. So it's something for us to feel good about because essentially that was the battle that turned the entire tide of the war. Some people might say, going up Italy, taking Sicily, and then moving up there, sooner or later we would have been in Germany through the Alps. But that worked out. And that's June 6th. And last year was the 80th anniversary of that.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so then after that one, another one.
It was June 6th, 2 years ago, was the 80th.
44, right? Yeah, my bad. 2 years ago. Yeah, it's difficult with me with the math. Right? So,
well, I still sometimes think I'm in 2025, but that's just me.
Yeah. So Flag Day's coming up, which coincides with the Army's birthday. I don't know why that happened, but the Army's birthday is June 14th. So that, again, being an Army veteran, it's kind of important to me. But Flag Day, at least in Schiller Park, all right, we have a flag retirement ceremony. And on Flag Day, that's also when they replace all the flags. So those flags fly for a year, and then there's a company. I wish I remember the name of the company so I could give them a plug. But they donate the flags for Schiller Park to fly in their Clock Tower Park every year. Right?
Would it be Cintas, maybe?
It might be.
I think it is.
For Schiller Park. They donate the flags. And that's, it's pretty cool. So on that same day, they have the Boy Scouts coming up there. Well, the Scouts, the USA Scouts, but not from Schiller Park. We don't have one. They come out from Park Ridge. And they've almost got this down to a science now. So we have the kids lowering the flags. They lower the flags. Then we do a ceremony of retiring a U.S. flag. And there's a specific way to do it. First, you dismantle the flag so it's no longer a U.S. flag. You dismantle it into its components, and then you honorably burn it, all right? You honorably burn the flag because it's not a flag anymore. It's just the components of a flag. So, and they talk about what each of the stripes represents, what the stars represent, what the colors represent. It's a real nice ceremony, again. And the American Legion's there. We provide an honor guard, all right? And then they have a memorial wall there for veterans that were from Schiller Park. And they put their names on the memorial wall. And there's a little ceremony for that. And then well, on Memorial Day, we're going to lay a wreath. All right. So after that, June 14th, Flag Day for honoring the flag there. And the Army's birthday. So I'll have to do something special for the Army's birthday. Because, for 38 years, I was in a codependent relationship with the Army.
Yes.
It's the best way I could describe it. I mean, there's other ones out there. Now you have Veterans Day. So we talked about Armed Forces Day, which celebrates all the armed forces. People that are currently serving in the armed forces. That's Armed Forces Day. That's for them. Memorial Day is for people that have died in the line of duty, or even they might not die right away, but they might be severely wounded, and maybe 2 years later they might pass away after struggling. So, it's still Memorial Day for them. And then you have Veterans Day, which is November 11th. That pushing it out there. And so you don't get confused for that. That's everyone that was a veteran, whether they're dead, alive, right? Still serving, because you only have to serve 1 day to be a veteran, or you're a veteran. You did 3 years, you did 2 years, you did 38 years, you're retired. You're a veteran. So this day honors you. And why did that come up? Do you know why that came about, Paul?
Yes, and that's also interesting because Veterans Day was also part of one of the Monday holidays, okay? But it got changed back. And the reason is such the important significance of the day.
Yes.
Because that's the day that World War I officially stopped.
The fighting stopped.
Pardon? Yeah.
The fighting stopped.
The 11th day, the 11th hour, and the 11th minute. And that's why it's called Veterans Day, and it's celebrated on November the 11th.
Yeah, they used to call it Armistice Day. All right, so when we're back, we're going to talk about more of these holidays. If you got a holiday we haven't mentioned, something that's important to you, or something that you think we got wrong, give us a call. 847-931-1410.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN. The Cubs and the White Sox both had Thursday off. The Cubs are home this afternoon hosting the Astros. 2-3 Jamison Tyone faces 5-1 Spencer Arrighetti. Cubs have been on a bumpy road, losses in 5 straight and 8 of 10. They've dropped out of the NL Central lead, now a game and a half behind Milwaukee. The White Sox are second in the AL Central, chasing Cleveland, 3.5 games out, winners in 7 of their last 10, but coming off a loss. The Sox are at San Francisco tonight, where 6-1 Davis Martin gets to start, while 2-0 Trevor McDonald takes the ball for the Giants. San Francisco comes in having lost 3 in a row. Some roster moves for the Bears. They confirmed 2 veteran signings, running back Salvin Ahmed and safety Anthony Johnson Jr. The Bears also waived running back Deion Hankins and put Torrey Taylor on the exempt list. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive. I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 15th through the 28th. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
Earn an accredited MBA in as few as 16 months for about $21K at University of Maryland Global Campus. Explore 10 specializations, including finance, HR, cyber technology, and more. Plus, showcase the value of your MBA with a comprehensive learner record and digitally demonstrate in-demand skills and credentials to employers. No application fee if you apply by June 1st. Learn more at umgc.edu. Certified to operate in Virginia by SCHEV.
Get ready for an unforgettable night out in downtown St. Charles at O Shows. where live music, dining, and entertainment come alive. Visit the iconic Arcada Theater at 105 East Main Street and experience the venue voted Chicagoland's premier entertainment destination. Whether you're enjoying a headliner concert, dining at Rock and Ravioli, or hitting the speakeasy at Club Arcada, O-Shows creates memories. Tickets and event info at oshows.com. And you can call 630-962-7000. That's 630-962-7000. Make your reservation, bring your friends, and plan your next event at O-Shows. Live music, dining, and entertainment, all in one place. Visit oshows.com and join the fun tonight. Supporter of the America's First Responder Fest.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast, brought to you by Chick-fil-A. This afternoon, partly sunny with a high near 73. Tonight, a slight chance of rain showers, then a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mostly cloudy with a low around 56. Looking ahead to Sunday, a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mostly sunny with a high near 80. Currently at 65 and partly cloudy. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
This deer season, John Deere wants to give you the home field advantage. We're bringing you the best offers of the season, whether that's cash off on select new machines or a shot at the ultimate Major League Baseball prize package. Because right now, you can enter for a chance to win an MLB All-Star experience for you and 3 friends, complete with travel and lodging for All-Star Week this July. Deer season is going on now through June 3rd. Visit johndeere.com/deer season to enter and view the offers and complete contest rules. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
Fix Bayonets, comrades, we're back for the second quarter of the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-hosts Mike Tuman and Paul Burvid. Saturday, noon until 2 to WRMN, 1410 AM. Easier to get in at WRMN1410.com. Just hit stream live, and you'll get up there. Or you could hit the YouTube live channel for WRMN 1410 on YouTube. Paul, all right, so... the call-in number, if anyone wants to call in, 847-926 or 931-1410 or 505-926-1410 for the text. So, let's see. Okay, so the armistice, they used to call that day Armistice Day. And
correct.
It's a big thing because, those guys in World War I weren't really sitting around marking time in a forward operating base. They were stuck in the worst possible conditions of the world, and very rarely were they rotated off. So once they got over there, it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. And to have an end to that, an end to this constant, it wasn't, there wasn't like 30 days of peace and 30 days of not firing, and then suddenly there'd be an offense somewhere. It was constant, absolutely constant.
Well, there was another one that was going to be over by the end of summer, by Christmas, right? There's a theme here, but yeah, and those poor guys, it got a total stalemate, trench warfare, and then the tanks started coming out, and then the airplanes started coming out, and then the gas started coming out, and it was like it was hell. It was every hell you could imagine. And, the technology wasn't, in terms of life-saving, was not really there. And a lot of people died of, just wounds that festered. Rats bit them. They had to live in trenches. And, when we think trenches, it's not like 4 or 5 feet. It could be a 3-story trench down, with levels where people sleeping in it. I mean, with mud and muck and
yep.
Frostbite and all kinds of things. It's it's the worst of the worst.
So it was a celebration to the end of the war, and then it became a celebration of the veterans that had served, because there was a significant. We hadn't really seen anything in that scale since the Civil War.
That is correct.
Talking 1865 to 1917, right? So 1865 to 1917 is, let's do this, 42, 52 years, right?
Right.
So you figure most of the Civil War veterans are past, the great majority of them, right? And we had a few actions like in 1915 in Haiti. We had the Spanish-American War, which wasn't on such a grand scale, right? That was in 1898, right?
Right, but it was a global conflict because it involved Cuba, it involved the Philippines. So it was both land and naval, and you know,
it did not see the scale.
That is an important point, though, because there was great division in the United States after the Civil War. Okay, and the Spanish-American War served to unify once again both the North and the South, because many of the people that fought in the Confederacy were high-level officers in the United States by the Spanish-American War, and there were, again, you know, Teddy Roosevelt himself was the Secretary of the Navy, and he assisted Secretary of the Navy, and he resigned to become a colonel in the Spanish-American War. You know, I mean, there's that war, which was truly the fastest we had been involved in at the time, and one of the most successful. And some would say that's what led the United States to become, late in life, a colonial power. But that is the war that served to unite both the North and the South once again into a common cause.
Yeah, you know, and one of the things talking about Veterans Days and Memorial Day in particular, which comes around to this, and when they're taking down the monuments to the Confederate officers, monuments to Confederate soldiers, monuments to the Confederacy, what people don't realize is that all the Confederate soldiers were considered U.S. military veterans. And I'm trying to remember, was that in the 50s when they did that, or was that even before that, when Congress said they're all veterans?
It was James Garfield that said that, and that would be just before the turn of the century.
Okay, so it's important to know that even then, like you said, right before the turn of the century, and right as we go into the Spanish-American War, right?
Correct.
So to reunite it, and one of the ways to reunite is say, hey, you know, you're still veterans, and you're going to get the recognition of veterans. So when you tear down a memorial to Confederate soldier, to Confederate officer there, you're tearing down a memorial to a veteran. You know, so you're attacking veterans.
You know, this is an important point, okay? And I don't want to belabor the point because I do not sympathize with the Confederacy at all. But, you know, in working for the state, I learned something very unique, okay? In Rock Island, which is part of the state of Illinois, there's a national cemetery and there's a Confederate cemetery, okay? And every Memorial Day, volunteers go out and they put small Confederate flags for the weekend on the graves of the Confederate soldiers. And as you pointed out, they are now considered to be soldiers. They're veterans. Okay. They you know, tragically, they fought for a cause that was not right, but it was a cause that Americans did fight in. And so they are recognized, and that's the only weekend where you could see those flags, okay? And there's a rule for this in the federal government. The flags cannot be larger than the American flag and stuff like that. And I don't want to get into the PC of it, but in the past, there have been groups that have been outraged and they have pulled those flags down and replaced them with American flags, and that's illegal, okay? They are entitled to bear the flags of the who they fought for, and it's just for that weekend. But, you know, you're bringing up an important point. because all of this stuff evolves. And you know what the last important thing about Memorial Day was?
No.
It happened just 6 years ago when Congress, 26 years ago, in 2000, Congress passed the National Moment of Remembrance. So on Monday, wherever you are, anywhere in the country, where it is 3 o'clock, you're supposed to spend a minute and in complete silence in remembrance of the fallen soldiers who did not make it. And a lot of people don't know that. It's on Memorial Day, exactly at 3 p.m. And they stop baseball games, they stop everything, and you stand, or you sit or whatever, and you give a thought to all those who went before us to fight to make us free.
Yeah. No, I'm glad. I vaguely remember something like that. It's one of the penguins that keeps jumping off my iceberg of a brain, right? But I'm going to remember that now. I'm going to remember it now. I'm going to post it on our webpage.
There's such ironicness. When I was a kid, Dennis responded that he remembers in '67 when they changed it in the Chicago area, and they used to run movies on ABC 7, Channel 7, and it was always a staple on the Memorial Day weekend that they would run the movie To Hell and Back. Do you know what movie that was? Right. And you want to know the ironic thing? Audie Murphy was a businessman and an actor after the war, okay? And he actually was an instructor later on in the military, but his plane crashed on May the 28th, 1971. And you know when they recovered his body?
I'm not sure.
Exactly 2 days later on the new Memorial Day, the first Monday holiday in 1971. So his plane crashed and he died on the 28th, but his body was recovered on Memorial Day, the day that he is, in my mind, forever associated with World War II and heroism and valor. But it's really kind of unusual that the guy that, for me, that embodies what Memorial Day should be, even though he was alive, was actually
a lot of his buddies got killed in that movie.
That's right. And you know what? Audie Murphy said that. They asked him what it's like to be the most decorated soldier, and he would say something to the effect of, "I don't know, but I remember the guys who never got a medal and who never came back."
Yeah. So we got a phone call. Hello? Who's on the line?
It's Cleveland Dennis, and I just feel that this is an appropriate time that I could make a comment to you guys. I enjoy the show every week, but I just want to say, like my dad, I remember the day. I'm going to take off the speaker, I guess. Hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay, much better, Dennis.
But I remember the day when that happened with Audie Murphy, all right? And my dad, a World War II veteran, he, was very, I guess, moved by it because he understood what Audie Murphy stood for as a decorated veteran and all that. But I'm really calling about something I learned. And again, I love the historical perspective that you guys bring. And it reminds me of a lot of things, but the fact I used to travel to England, and I was up in the north of England, and somebody is explaining to me, yeah, we're a warring people. I want to emphasize that, warring people. Since my birth in 1950, we just came out of World War II again, where my dad fought, but World War I, 1918, both my mom and my dad were born that year. We were at war in Europe with the trenches and all that. But We're going from World War I, the Spanish-American War, all the way back to the Civil War. And today I'll probably watch the Red Badge of Courage because it's pretty impactful when you see that movie. But to continue with my point, we're a warring people. 1950, when I was born, or 53 was the beginning of the Korean War. The Vietnam War hit. I'm still affected by that. You guys, I talked last week that I'd like to get a couple of dog tags, a dog tag for each one of the individuals.
All right, so Dennis,
growing up, that never made it back from Vietnam.
Dennis,
and
I was at the dog tag.
Vietnam, and that war, the wars in the Middle East, and to this day, we're fighting a war presently with Iran. My point is, it's appreciated, and I'll be there on Monday for the Memorial Day services like I always go, with a picture of my one close friend at Bluff City Cemetery. And I'm just emphasizing and making a comment whether it's controversial or not, we are a warring people.
All right, so Dennis.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Dennis. And about the dog tags, so that dog tag exhibit that was down at the Harold Washington Library, downtown Chicago, on Tuesday,
right.
Our Dunkin' Donuts Veterans Group went down there. And we saw the thing, and they have associated with that a computer screen, a interactive lookup where it will show you put the name in, it'll show you where on the display their dog tag is to be found. But that isn't available online. It might be available in the future. But they're going to be moving that up to the Pritzker Museum in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So give it a couple months, and that display of all the dog tags from the Vietnam War, of all the fallen guys from the Vietnam War, will be up there, including fallen women. There were 8 women on that, eight wax Army or Navy nurses, I believe. So
is it anticipated that when it's up in Kenosha that you can access the finding?
If you go to Kenosha to see it, you'll be able to.
Really?
But you won't be able to. You can't just hook up online. You could see it online, a picture of it, but you can't hook up to say where in this is my friend. The name, but they're in the chronological order in which they died. So that's the order that those names are in. So
I could find it like that.
Yeah, but it's already done. You'd have to go up to Kenosha. I'll let everyone know when that opens up, when that event opens up. And so, all right, thank you, Dennis.
Very good, thank you.
I agree with Dennis on one thing, and this thing that we are a warring nation. We shouldn't be afraid, but you got the conspiracy theories about Remember the Maine and that we blew up our own ship so we get into the Spanish-American War. That's one side of the deal, right? That's a revisionist history side of the deal. But they even say that it was an accidental thing that just happened, and we used it as an excuse to go to war with Spain, all right? Other things, the Civil War, the South fired on Fort Sumter. What do? Do we force them into it? The Revolutionary War, a year before that started, we started the Continental Army, and the British were already occupying they had British troops in the Americas and the colonies when the colonies didn't need British troops to protect them from like the French or the Indians. We'd established colony militias, and we had a federal army under the Articles of Confederation. Right, so, and World War I, you had the Zimmerman telegram. You had some other things, right? Unrestricted war in the Atlantic, unrestricted submarine warfare and naval warfare in the Atlantic, which threatened our supposedly were a neutral, but it threatened our merchant fleet, and all these things bring us into World War I. And then World War II, we weren't doing anything. And all of a sudden, December 7th, 1941, they bombed Pearl Harbor, and first thing we do is declare war on Germany. Yeah, it's like, well, we declare war on Germany, and Germany was an ally of the Japanese, and but we had
you're either for us or you're against us,
But if you attack us in some way or another, right, then we're going to come in. Or if you attack one of our allies that we've told that we'll protect you, much like Kuwait, right? So Kuwait gets invaded, and then in Panama, I could go on and on about the reasons Noriega got taken out, all right? But there were reasons in Panama, and we said we would defend the Panama Canal with force if necessary, and we could always use that. And that was part of a treaty. Yes, we're a warring nation. We are not Switzerland. We are not. And is Sweden part of NATO now? Not sure. Probably should know. But we're not neutral in a lot of things. We try to. So I agree with you, Dennis, that we're a warring nation. And as a warring nation, we should have a lot of respect for our warriors and our fallen warriors. Ergo, Memorial Day, Armed Forces Day, and Veterans Day. All right, so there's a lot more in there. People, those are the big ones. And the biggest one coming up this year, not necessarily, but it's going to be big. It's going to be really big. It's going to be huge. Did I get that?
Sweden is part of NATO as of 2024.
Okay, yeah, but they used to be neutrals. We're neutral. Correct. World War I, we're neutral World War II. Now they're like, well, we can't really be neutral with Russia. And Sweden borders Russia all the way up in the north. Way up north. I think way up north they have a small border with Russia. So the Russians could go in overland. It would take them a while. But, they the full, after what happened in Ukraine, right? The full force, if Sweden had to stand alone against the full force of the Russian military, they would have some issues there. It wouldn't be very good for them. But so they joined NATO. But okay, so we're getting off topic. But I still want to just kind of do happier holidays. And July 4th, right, Paul? 250 years.
250 years of the democracy. The brightest shining democracy in the world.
The brightest shining representative republic in the world. Because, democracy, but I think most people, we could do a whole show on this one, the definition of democracy. And most people think that either you're a democracy or you're a totalitarian government. Right? But we're a representative democracy. And
correct.
Great Britain is, or I don't know, the United Kingdom is a
monarchy,
a parliamentary
constitutional monarchy.
With, but other countries are parliamentary as opposed to
that is correct.
A republic because they're not as large as the United States. And when you talk about the Civil War, one of the things that you could be either for the Confederacy, against the Confederacy, or totally neutral on the Confederacy. But one of the things the South was fighting for was they felt that the federal government, the over-federal and the higher populations of the northern states, and you can't just say free states versus slave states, because let's remember, Maryland, West Virginia, and Kentucky were on the north side and continued to be slave states up until the 19th Amendment, right? Or the 18th. 19th Amendment. 13th.
No, 19th, 13th. The 19th was prohibition.
Yeah, 13th Amendment, right? Was the elimination of slavery. So those states, even after Juneteenth and the Emancipation Proclamation, those states were still slave states. So when people say it was to free the slaves, I go, really? Because we had 3 slave states fighting on our side. It was to keep for the north side, the reason was not to free the slaves, it was to maintain the republic, right? to keep the republic together. And I believe on the Confederate side, they believed that the federal government was overstepping their rights as individual states in the republic. Where the federal government was trying to make states' laws that weren't applied by the Constitution, because we know in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution that if it doesn't belong to the federal government, then it belongs to the states. And if it doesn't belong to the states, then it belongs to the people. And at one point, the federal government was trying to, without legal authority, by passing the law through the Senate and through the Congress, signed by the president, and then maybe double checked by the Supreme Court, they were making administrative decisions that were affecting the states' right. Get real. That's too much, too deep in touch. So, why am I trying to get around it? So, and the heaviest battle, not probably the heaviest, but the most decisive battle in the Civil War, being Gettysburg, was fought on the July 4th weekend.
Ready to tackle your junk piles? Call the Junk Luggers. From old furniture to entire cleanouts, we do the heavy lifting. And here's the best part. We rehome and recycle as much as possible to keep it all out of landfills. Feel good about your cleanout the green way. Call 1-800-LUG-JUNK or visit junkluggers.com today for your eco-friendly, stress-free service.
They're simple, boring, never thought of until they're needed. They're windshield wipers. Only when Mary Anderson became annoyed that New York trolley drivers were stopping to wipe their windshield by hand did anybody do something about it. By attaching a spring-loaded arm to a rubber blade, one woman made travel easier and safer. Look to innovate and pass it on. From passiton.com.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 1 o'clock.
With your news flash, I'm Ryan Gatenby, brought to you by Cintas.
Elgin will honor America's 250th anniversary during its Bluff City Cemetery Memorial Day program on May 25th. The day-long observance includes services at multiple cemeteries and Veterans Memorial Park featuring color guards, rifle salutes, taps, and tributes to veterans. The main 11 a.m. ceremony at Bluff City Cemetery will highlight the nation's founding anniversary and include readings, music, and a wreath laying. Organizers are also encouraging attendance with shuttle service and designated seating areas. An Elgin man and former volleyball coach is accused of sexually assaulting a teenage player more than 2 decades ago. Prosecutors say 54-year-old Arthur Weathers abused the 16-year-old girl between 1999 and 2001 while coaching at an Elgin volleyball club. He now faces 25 felony charges, including criminal sexual assault and aggravated criminal sexual assault. Investigators say the alleged victim came forward last year. 2 members of the Batavia School District 101 Board of Education have resigned, citing concerns over communication and transparency. Katie Swisicki and Danielle Sliger both stepped down effective immediately, saying they struggled to raise community concerns and have open discussions with the board. District officials say the process to fill the vacant seats will begin soon. Kyle Busch, a 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion and one of the winningest drivers in the sport's history, died Thursday at the age of 41 after being hospitalized with what his family described as a severe illness. He was preparing to compete in Sunday's Coca-Cola 600 before his hospitalization earlier this week. Hoffman Estates is inviting community groups, teams, and organizations to take part in the 4th of July parade. The parade begins at 9 a.m. on July 4th along Illinois Boulevard, with this year's theme celebrating America's 250th anniversary, From Sea to Shining Sea. Organizers say parade applications are due by June 1st.
I'm Ryan Gatenby with your news flash.
The Colonel's cooked up a new $10 bucket of the day just for you. Monday, 24 nuggets for $10. Tuesday, 8-piece fried chicken for $10. Wednesday, 10 wings for $10. Thursday, 8 tenders for $10. Friday, 24 nuggets for, ooh, you guessed it, didn't you? $10. The $10 bucket of the day deal. Every weekday. Only at KFC. It's finger licking good.
Prices and participation vary while supplies last. Not available on third-party ordering platforms. Tax extra.
At Liberty Mutual, we love helping people with things like customizing car insurance, just like how we customize a song for you. Catered country tune. Liberty Mutual, saving you bucks while protecting your truck. 'Cause Birdie told me to only pay for what I need. Thank you, Limu. Always trust in Limu. With Liberty, 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 Liberty.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN. College baseball, Missouri Valley Tournament. Evansville beat Illinois State 6-3. UIC pounded SIU 11-1. Murray State over Indiana State 3-2. Southern Illinois bounced back with a 3-2 win over Evansville. Ohio Valley Tournament. Eastern Illinois beat Southeast Missouri 3-2. SIU Edwardsville 4-3 over Little Rock. Southern Indiana beat Southeast Missouri State 5-3. And Little Rock came back with a 4-3 win over at Lindenwood. The Cubs and the White Sox both had Thursday off. The Cubs are home this afternoon hosting the Astros. 2-3 Jamison Tyone faces 5-1 Spencer Arrighetti. Cubs have been on a bumpy road, losses in 5 straight and 8 of 10. They've dropped out of the NL Central lead, now a game and a half behind Milwaukee. The White Sox begin a series at San Francisco. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters or condo with Progressive. I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
Pump up the volume.
Business moves fast. Orders roll in, deadlines close in. When you ship with USPS Ground Advantage, you can keep up with.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast, brought to you by Chick-fil-A. This afternoon, partly sunny with a high near 73. Tonight, a slight chance of rain showers, then a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mostly cloudy with a low around 56. Looking ahead to Sunday, a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mostly sunny with a high near 80. Currently at 65 and partly cloudy. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
This deer season, John Deere wants to give you the home field advantage. We're bringing you the best offers of the season, whether that's cash off on select new machines or a shot at the ultimate Major League Baseball prize package. Because right now, you can enter for a chance to win an MLB All-Star experience for you and 3 friends, complete with travel and lodging for All-Star Week this July. Deer season is going on now through June 3rd. Visit johndeere.com/deer season to enter and view the offers and complete contest rules. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
What's the best way to get rid of a timeshare that you don't want? Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline. We're a group of attorneys that help customers legally exit their timeshares. It's an easy process. We guarantee results or you pay nothing. Exit your timeshare today. Call now.
800-890-5957. 800-890-5957. That's 800-890-5957.
Clutter happens, but junk doesn't have to weigh you down. At the Junk Luggers, we're your full-service junk removal and hauling pros, tackling everything from single-item pickups to major cleanouts. We handle the heavy lifting, and with our commitment to the Green Way, we rehome and recycle to keep your unwanted items out of landfills. So, whether you're clearing out the garage, downsizing, or saying goodbye to old furniture, we make the process eco-friendly and easy. Call 1-800-LUGJUNK or visit junkluggers.com today. Let's save your space and the planet together.
Six Bayonets, comrades. This is Chief Guard of the Republic radio show with your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt every Saturday noon until 2 on WRMN 1410 AM. Streaming on WRMN1410.com, the YouTube live channel of WRMN 1410, and you could see the archive shows on Chief Guard of the Republic's YouTube channel. So you call us in here, just like Cleveland Dennis did, 847-931-1410. Or the magical text number out of New Mexico, 505-926-1410. You know, I don't even think that these area codes have any meaning anymore. You know, everyone might just well have a 10-digit phone number. You know, don't worry about what area code it is. Although my 312 area code for my personal cell phone, which I'm not going to give out on the air. I always said, ooh, 312. Ooh, I got a 312 number. Ooh. Downtown Chicago, the old Chicago one. All right, so we got okay, after our June 14th Flag Day and Army birthday, all right, and July 4th coming up, I was wondering if I had any other ones here written down for June. June 6th, we talked about D-Day, and two more military ones. We talked about December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, but the two ones you don't hear about much anymore, right? You don't really hear about them much anymore, and probably because we don't want to offend people in the Pacific and people in Europe, is Victory in Europe Day, you know? And so that's in VE Day, May 8th.
That's in April. That's in April, isn't it?
Well, VE Day is May 8th, all right? And that's when the Germans signed the Instrument of Surrender, all right, in 1945. So Victory in Europe Day, you know, they don't call it, which is funny because they don't call it Victory over the Axis, VA Day, right? Which would be Veterans Administration Day. People would get all confused. They don't call it Victory over the Axis because we hadn't defeated the whole Axis. We have already defeated Italy. The Russians had already overrun Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria, which were quasi-Axis allies, and Slovakia. And I don't know if anyone had been into Croatia yet, because Croatia was, you know, with the Germans on that. But they call it Victory in Europe Day to cover all those things in the Axis, except for Japan. But VJ, they could have called it Victory in the Pacific Day, but the VJ Day, but they called it Victory over Japan Day, VJ Day, and it had a couple dates. Well, the first date was 14th of August, right? And that's when the Japanese accepted terms. They said, oh, okay, we'll surrender under those terms. And then the 15th of August was the date that the Emperor Hirohito, right, announced to the Japanese people that they had accepted terms of surrender. But the actual surrender...
On the radio, by the way. On the radio.
On the radio, yeah.
First time people had ever heard his voice.
All the people. The other people heard I'm sure his generals and everything had heard his voice. But, yeah, over the radio where all the people heard it. So it was kind of important to them. So it's like, he's like, yeah, this is me, and it's not a rumor. This is what we're doing, right? And you got to accept it, right? But the actual instruments were signed. Instruments of surrender were signed on September 2nd, and that's the accepted final date for Victory over Japan Day, September 2nd, 1945. So you don't hear a lot about that, right? It's like on May 8th, you're not going to. I mean, what big movie would be there, you know? And on September 2nd, you're not going to see a movie about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You know, those dates, in my opinion, the New World Order, to keep everyone from being, to keep certain people from being butthurt, right? That they don't over advertise, give overexposure to those two significant dates. But you'll always hear about D-Day. You always hear about Pearl Harbor, right? But you're not really hearing VJ Day or VE Day. Am I right, Paul? Or
you are. You are.
Because it's all right to be the victim. Right? Pearl Harbor, we were the victim. Oh, okay, it's okay. You could celebrate your victimhood. VJ Day, we're the boss. We're the winners. You know, we're not the victim anymore. We're the winners of this, right? And so, you know, you can't celebrate being a winner according to what do you call it? Our lizard overlords, lords.
Neo-revisionism.
Good word. Neo-revisionism, right? They want to tell you what you can be happy about and what you can be sad about.
Right. Exactly.
I'm telling you, make up your own mind what you're happy about. Make up your own mind what you're sad about, right? And if you're happy over meaningless death, suffering, and destruction, get help. Get help quickly. All right? If you're sad for no reason because your neighbor had a little bit of good luck that you didn't have, his grass is greener, and that makes you sad, get help. This is a minuscule thing to be sad about, right? There's reasons to be happy, right? And then there's, how do I put this? Because there's a difference between socially acceptable and morally acceptable. Right, Paul?
There is.
And in my world, celebrating suffering is morally unacceptable, although it may be socially acceptable.
You know, I was in court, and I had a case, and one of my relatives was a judge, so he could never hear my case. Some other judge had to come in, but I had to sit in his courtroom up to that point in time till the new judge came in. And one of the state's attorneys one time introduced she said, "Judge, we're here the matter of, XYZ, or the state versus XYZ, the smiling defendant over here." And my relative, who was the judge, said, "Well, Ms. State's Attorney, everybody in my courtroom equally has the right to be happy, including defendants, So there's a place for happiness, and some people, to their credit, find happiness in the smallest thing.
Yeah.
And, God bless them, God bless them.
I told you a story about that. I'll tell this. Maybe I've told this story like 100,000 times, and because it really struck home with me. One of our sergeants in Bosnia, nice enough guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was a little guy, and he didn't get along with one of the interpreters, right, which was a civilian. It was a U.S. contractor, a U.S. civilian that came over there to interpret Croatian or Serbian, or they said Bosnian, but I says, no, it's either Croatian or Serbian. It's one or the other, right? But these two didn't get along, so they were on different teams. But one day they had to use the other team's interpreter. And this interpreter, big boy, big guy, inner city guy, and Bailey's just the guy's just the guy from Arkansas, the other guy, little guy from Arkansas, big inner city guy. And they got in a fight, and the interpreter beat up the sergeant and left him cowering under a Hummer. And no one was able to stop him because, it was one of these things that was, no one was around to stop it quick enough, right? So what the result was that we lost this interpreter, all right, who shouldn't have lost his temper like that. He should have come to me, right? And said, I got real problems with this guy. Now, the interpreter wasn't military, right? He was just contracting. And so now the team that this interpreter was working for, they got along fantastically, but now this team doesn't have the interpreter anymore. Their interpreter that the other team had ruined for them in a way by being a victim. And I just want to reach out. I sat down. This guy sits across from me at the mess hall. And he's just, because this was a big problem for me now to solve all this stuff. I'm hearing it from all the ends. And he's just flapping his gums about nonsense. And I'm really tired of his nonsense, right? So I'm going to reach over and make him be quiet. Just make him be quiet. And he goes, well, what great thing about here is, and I'm looking, they had, instead of regular size paper cups, they had the bowl size paper cups. So every morning I would have to get myself a bucket of coffee because they didn't have normal size cups, right? But we had canned soda, usually on ice, right? And they always had the little the little buckets of ice cream, with the little wooden spoons and stuff. And they have tons. You could have all you really want. And he says, anytime you want, you can make yourself a root beer float. And he puts the ice cream in the bucket and pours the root beer in. And I'm like, he's right. I can do that anytime I want. And I hadn't thought of that. And I went and gave myself a root beer float. And that saved his, at that moment, that had literally saved his life and my career, right? But it was the littlest thing in the world that you can make an ice cream float. I'm like, okay. So, yeah, we got to find, and it was a miserable administrative situation. Lives weren't lost on this or anything. It was a lot of people butthurt and a lot of people inconvenienced, especially me, over this guy's inability to keep his mouth shut when he needed to. And that's what we talked about last week, keeping your mouth shut. And at this time, this guy should have kept his mouth shut, and the interpreter and him wouldn't have got into it. They had to work together for a whole day. Ooh, a whole day. Ooh, I can't stand this guy for a whole day, But, yeah, you have a right to be happy and find happy in the littlest things, That's how you keep yourself sane. The Birdman of Alcatraz, right? A lifer in Alcatraz. Keeping those birds kept them sane, right? And he developed a lot of treatments for bird sicknesses. He was credited with a lot of stuff on there. So, yeah.
Not so good with people, better with animals. You know what I'm saying?
Better with animals. But, there's the thing. There are times, there are strange things you shouldn't take joy in. That's a sign of, I think a sign of mental illness is if you take joy in the suffering of others. There's a human need for revenge, some psychological need for revenge, right, Paul?
There is.
There is.
Yeah.
And you could wish great hurt upon everyone. And I have to fight every day, right? Every day. People say, well, are you a good person? I says, no. No. If left to my own devices, without fighting against my demons, and my demons are my demons. They're not, these aren't demons. I'm not cursed or anything, right? I don't think of such grand things that Satan himself has assigned me like 40 demons because I'm such a great person. They say that the saints were constantly tormented, right? I think this is just issues in my own head, right? Because I'm someone about personal responsibility. And because I'm someone about personal responsibility, 99% of my time is spent, why shouldn't I hurt that person really bad right now? Right now.
One of my big phrases to some people is, you got to let it go.
Yeah.
You got to let it go and move on. Because the more you're stuck in a rut, the harder it is to go forward.
Yeah.
And you got to let it go, And
it takes me a while of fighting with myself to let this stuff go. And I really wish I could let there are some people out there, and I think it's a great thing. And they're like, well, that was yesterday. This is today. And they drive on. But they learn, too, Again, turn the other cheek, right? But when you turn the other cheek, Paul, you should take a step back. So that swing comes and it misses because you learned from the first one.
Right.
So you turned the other cheek, but you stood back, right?
Right.
You don't trade punches, but you stand back.
Right.
Try not to be the victim. I think I'm getting a little preachy and off subject. So, what the thing it was with I think we got into it that we no longer want to, for some reason, we no longer want to celebrate being the victor. We only want to celebrate being the victim. And one of the Patriots Day, right? It's only been around now for 25 years. Well, almost 25 years, right? And that's September 11th. That was a terrible defeat on our part. We were defeated. You know, the intelligence agencies shouldn't have let that happen.
What it was a modern day Pearl Harbor.
Yes, but you know what? Like Pearl Harbor, all right? And this is hindsight is 2020. Hindsight's wonderful. You know, people go through and everything, and all of a sudden you have access to all the information that all these individuals didn't have access to back in 1941. So, like, they had 300 P-40s, and what people say about the P-40 being an obsolete aircraft, it really wasn't, all right? And it was used throughout the whole war, right? But if 300 of those had taken off and used the dogfighting methods, which really weren't dogfighting, learned by the Army, the Volunteer Expeditionary Force in China that were flying predominantly P-40s, right? And they learned how to fight the Japanese best aircraft using that American aircraft. If 300 of those had taken off and met the Japanese in the air because they already had radar blips assigning this. You were already in strained relations with Japan, right? We already didn't know where their fleet was. You know, all these indicators, they should have had a screen of PBY aircraft, you know, the flying boats and everything. They should have had a screen of submarines out there, you know, keeping the Japanese from approaching. None of these things they had. Had all those things come together, yeah, we wouldn't have been the victims. It would have been a slaughter of the Japanese We may not have hit their aircraft carriers, but we would have slaughtered their aircraft coming in. And an aircraft carrier without aircraft is
useless.
Well, you could ram something with it. It's not really that fast, but it is pretty big, right? But they're not really armored up.
Nope.
And
they don't have a lot of offensive weapons either. Other than the planes.
I think the Indomitable, what was it? The Indomitable, the British had an aircraft carrier with an 18.1 inch gun on the stern, but it only had like a 45 degree. Like someone would have to be coming from you from behind, and then you only get one shot off at a time. That's like an 18.1. But yeah, So more people know about Pearl Harbor, where we were the, quote, victims, right, as opposed to victory in Japan over Japan Day. Right?
Well, you know, there's a theme here, too. Remember the Maine, remember Pearl Harbor, remember
it's okay to
9/11.
Yeah. Well, and now when go back, we talked a little bit about it. Maybe next week, right? We should do a show dedicated to the Spanish-American War.
That'd be fine.
In depth on that. Because,
it's one of my favorite subjects.
Because no one really knows about Havana Harbor and the Maine anymore, right?
Right.
And no one knows about Dewey's fleet.
They know about Admiral Dewey.
In Manila Harbor.
Right.
All right, where they blew the snot out of the Spanish fleet, but the Spanish fleet was coming through a narrow strait. But everyone knows about San Juan Hill and Teddy Roosevelt. Well, probably because and conspiracy theories, right? Teddy Roosevelt was Undersecretary of who?
Navy.
The Navy. All right. And one of his statements was, every great president has had his war.
Waterloo?
War.
Oh.
His war. So, no. The Maine blew up in Havana Harbor. Is the Maine an Army vessel? Or was it a naval vessel? And then suddenly, Teddy Roosevelt drops out and becomes a member of a militia, a colonel in a militia.
The first volunteers.
For volunteer militia brought into active duty. So his political, because if he's not brought onto active duty, right, in the United States, backed up by the United States government, he's nothing but a mercenary. Mercenaries do not receive, even then, they didn't have they had the Hague Convention, but not the Geneva Conventions, right, at that time. But still, mercenaries did not receive, they weren't prisoners of war. They were treated a lot differently. Like, you capture a mercenary, just put a bullet in his head, right? They didn't have any rights. So he comes under the United States, and then he has this great, well, they called it Teddy Roosevelt's charge, and he's got him on horseback and everything. And it's like, okay, so he's a war hero. He's got his war, and he gets elected president. You know?
Well, vice president. He was vice president. All right. And it was because Cleveland was assassinated that he became, at the time, the youngest president because of assassination.
Ooh.
But it did make his political career.
Yeah.
But remember, now be careful about that, because Teddy Roosevelt in the 1880s or 1890s was the first chief of police or something of New York City.
Yep.
And he's the one that standardized their weapons with the 32 caliber revolver. And he's the one that, he had a lot of experience before that. And then, he was political. And unbeknownst to a lot of people, there's a famous photograph of the Lincoln funeral in New York going by a building. And in the building are two young children looking out at the funeral. And one of them was Teddy Roosevelt. So Roosevelt had a lot of, he was born, he had asthma, he was a very sick person, but he worked himself.
He had a lot of hustle in him.
Right. That's the picture of him. And he's looking out of the window at the funeral. That is Teddy Roosevelt, and with his brother. So there's a lot more to this. And then Roosevelt, as I said, was, I believe, one of the first chiefs of police of the New York City. And then my famous story is there was a famous blizzard in 1888.
I remember that story.
Yeah.
But we'll talk. You can tell when we come back from commercial. We'll start out back at the commercial with the Teddy Roosevelt story.
All right.
Progressive presents the Sports Flash on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN. The Cubs and the White Sox both had Thursday off. The Cubs are home this afternoon hosting the Astros. 2-3 Jameson Taillon faces 5-1 Spencer Arrighetti. Cubs have been on a bumpy road, losses in 5 straight and 8 of 10. They've dropped out of the NL Central lead, now a game and a half behind Milwaukee. The White Sox begin a series at San Francisco. College baseball, Missouri Valley Tournament. Evansville beat Illinois State 6-3. UIC pounded SIU 11-1. Murray State over Indiana State 3-2. Southern Illinois bounced back with a 3-2 win over Evansville. Ohio Valley Tournament. Eastern Illinois beat Southeast Missouri 3-2. SIU Edwardsville 4-3 over Little Rock. Southern Indiana beat Southeast Missouri State 5-3. And Little Rock came back with a 4-3 win over at Lindenwood. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive. I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
You know what you can trust? The protection you get when you bundle home and auto insurance with Progressive. You know what you can't trust? Everything else, apparently. Like when you saw that article that said that thing you eat every day is a superfood and great for your gut health. But then 30 seconds later, a different article warns you to avoid it and it's taking years off your life. Well, which is it? Kind of a big difference there. Anyway, bundle home and auto insurance with Progressive for reliable coverage in a reliably unreliable world. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Every 34 seconds, someone in America dies from heart disease. In that same time, you could be managing your heart health at home. With Cardia Mobile, the #1 doctor-recommended personal EKG device that detects atrial fibrillation and other arrhythmias in just 30 seconds. Unlimited readings from anywhere at a surprisingly affordable price. Order now at Cardia, KARDIA.com or Amazon. Because when it comes to your heart, seconds count.
Since 1960, Fox Valley Fire and Safety has been dedicated to caring for our customers and protecting our community. What began in a family basement with just 2 employees has grown into a team of more than 300, supported by nearly 200 service vehicles. But our mission has never changed. We're here to keep the people and businesses we serve safe. Our service technicians are available 24/7, 365 days a year across Northern Illinois because your safety can't wait. To learn more, visit foxvalleyfire.com or call 847-695-5990. A proud member of the Elgin Area Chamber of Commerce, supporting the local business community.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast, brought to you by Primatene Mist. This afternoon, partly sunny with a high near 73. Tonight, a slight chance of rain showers, then a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mostly cloudy with a low around 56. Looking ahead to Sunday, a chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mostly sunny with a high near 80. Currently, it's 68 and partly cloudy. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
Pump up the volume. Business moves fast. Orders roll in, deadlines close in. When you ship with USPS Ground Advantage, you can keep up with confidence. Every package stays in our secure network from dock to door. And with nationwide reach, dependable tracking, and upfront affordable pricing, you get built-in peace of mind. You run the business. We run the routes. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to learn more.
Fixed Bayonets, comrades, we're back for the third quarter of the second half of the second half. The second half of the second half, yeah. The third quarter of the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show. Veterans Radio Shout-Out Show, 1410 AM, noon till 2. We lead in for sometimes the White Sox, sometimes the Bears. We're doing okay. So, Paul.
Yes.
Teddy Roosevelt, winter storm. Let's hear the story.
Yeah. So it was the blizzard of 1888, and remember, they didn't really have radio or anything. So it was like a kind of like a fall spring day, and it had been very warm, and there was a blizzard, and New York City and New England got caught off guard. So he was taking a ride to go to a job interview, and they had elevated trains back in that day. But they really weren't electric, but they were steam powered or whatever. And he had to go to a job interview. So he jumped off the elevated track and landed in a bank of snow. And he went for the job interview. And the guy, of course, he wasn't there because there was a blizzard. So Roosevelt was so bent out of shape. He wrote a letter and he said, "Sir, I keep my appointments. And you are not an honorable person, and you are not someone that I would ever want to work for." And he left it on the door.
Sounds like sour grapes to me.
That's right.
You know, it's like, yeah. I probably wasn't going to get that job anyway, so I'm going to write a steaming letter. You can't fire me, I quit.
Correct.
I can't quit, you fired me. That's what I like saying. I can't quit, you fired me. Right. Anyways, yeah, but he had you cannot deny the guy, you know, and a lot of this could be just, you know, George Washington with the cherry tree and throwing the silver dollar across the Potomac, right? You know, yeah. It's like, how much of this is legend? How much of this is Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But still, the guy had to have some hustle. I mean, he had a lot of jobs, chief of police of New York, right? And yeah, right. He was good with weapons. It's like, hey, Why are you guys carrying flintlocks or percussion pistols, right? Or single actions when you got this, this style, this double action style? It's easier to carry. It's not as heavy, right? You can conceal. The main thing was concealment, because people would just see the police with the club, the nightstick, right?
Yeah, right.
And they don't see a concealed sidearm there. So when you really had to take serious action, that would be a surprise. And then when he had his volunteer group, and he took it upon himself, because he didn't come from rags. He wasn't a rags to riches guy, right?
Right.
He had money, right? So he equipped the Rough Riders. He equipped them with modern equipment. And one of my sergeants in the police department brought in a picture, and he wanted me to identify. This is an old, right, post-Civil War like picture, but this is the turn of the century. And these guys were from the Illinois militia. They didn't call them the National Guard or Reserves back then. It was the Illinois militia, and they were getting mobilized to go to Cuba for the Spanish-American War. You know what these dudes were carrying? This is 1898, and the Civil War ended 30 years before, right?
Yeah.
They were carrying trapdoor Springfields. And for those people that know, the Springfield was the main percussion rifle of the Civil War. So you would have to...
the trap doors were converted to cartridge.
I was getting to that. But in the Civil War, you would have to... They have a paper cartridge of powder, right? And they would rip it open with their teeth, and they would put it down the barrel. Then you would take a greased mini ball, right? And it wasn't a ball. It was like a modern bullet, all right? They call them mini balls, and they were like pre-greased. And this is later in the war when things got more efficient, right? And you would ram that down the end of the barrel with a ram. Then you would put your ram back so you wouldn't lose it. You would cock the hammer, put in a percussion cap so you're not, shaking powder in there so the flint maybe or maybe not catches it. Then you aim, you pull the trigger. Hopefully it goes boom. The percussion cap sets off the powder. Powder sends that mini ball down. Boom, it goes down a rifle barrel. It spins. All right. So that took a while to load. And you can't really load it from the ground, laying on the ground either, right? So they figured out, someone figured out a way, because now by this time they had brass cartridges, modern rifle cartridges. The machining has changed, but this was a lot larger, and it's been miniaturized down to like 22 long rifle, right? But now you still had they were 61 caliber, or I think
the Civil War?
Yeah.
54
caliber, all right? Larger than a 45, right? And it had the percussion cap already on it, the powder loaded in it, and the mini ball, crimped in, and all you had to do was they cut open part of the back of the breech, and it would come open like a trap, and they would put the cartridge in, close it, and then cack the hammer, would come down, and it would hit this percussion cap, and that would set it off. And then to reload, you just opened it up, took out the old one, put in a new one, boom, much faster. Teddy Roosevelt armed his guys with lever-action rifles.
Well, no, actually not. Teddy had a Winchester 95 that was in caliber 30-40. But he was a disciple of Leonard Wood, the doctor.
Oh, Leonard Wood. They named it.
Leonard
that's
Wood,
why I went to basic training.
Right. And Leonard Wood was a doctor, but he was the guy that was in charge of Roosevelt's unit. And they wanted to arm themselves with the Craig, but not the Craig rifle, the Craig carbine, because Teddy's guys were all cavalry, okay? But when they got to Cuba, they were dismounted cavalry, except for Teddy. He had Little Texas, and I forgot what the other horse's name was. Teddy was the only mounted guy in the Rough Riders. That's why they were called Rough Riders. In Cuba, they were dismounted cavalry, and they all used the Krag carbine, which was different from the Krag rifle because the Krag rifle had a bayonet lug and a bayonet. But these guys did not have a bayonet, and it was the shortened rifle version. It's the Krag carbine, and I believe it was the Krag carbine of 96 or 97, I believe. And,
still a Martin rifle.
Right. But the key was it was the new smokeless powder rifle. All right. And like Roosevelt said, like you said, we could either use the Springfields and we'll be shielded by a cloud of smoke, or we could get the smokeless powder rifles because the Spanish were using the 1893 Mauser, which was smokeless. It was a Mauser pattern rifle, and we used the Krag, which was unique in that it had a dump. It was loaded by dumping rounds into like a trap, and it loaded, and it was much different. But it was our first effort at a smokeless powder gun.
All right. Well, I somewhere along the line I heard the what do you call the myth or whatever, the mythos, the urban legend that they were all carrying the 1873 Winchesters.
That was the regular army. The volunteers had the Krag rifles, and there were, this is like totally different because this was an effort that got America energized. So the Tiffany's were sent a son into combat, and I believe he was killed. But the Tiffany's donated 2 machine guns, the Potato Digger machine gun of 1896, which also was of the caliber 30-40, and they were still using Gatling guns. And there was a Gatling gun detachment there also, which used the smokeless powder rifles were the 45-70. That was 45 caliber, 70 grains of black powder. And that's what the Springfield rifle used, but that's also what the Gatling guns used. So you had some of the troops using, like you said, trapdoor single-shot Springfields and Gatling guns, and Roosevelt's guys using relatively modern repeater smokeless rifles with a modern machine gun. And then in fact, if you ever watched the movie, I think it was the
Professionals. The Professionals.
No, it was on
Lee Marvin
cable. It's about the Spanish-American War. I think it's called. It was a mini series. It came on in about 1997 or 1998. The Spaniards used the Maxim gun, and that was a machine gun, and that was a modern machine gun. But our modern one were the Colt Potato Diggers, and that was donated to his unit by the Tiffany family. The plate and the Tiffany family and the lamp people, they donated 2 machine guns to Roosevelt's company.
Can you imagine that? Getting a little off subject on the Patriot holidays, but can you imagine, like, okay, I'm a rather rich guy. All right, let's say I suddenly become on the level of Bezos or Tusk, right? And my kid gets drafted into a unit, or he goes into a unit. And now me, as a concerned parent, realize that my son doesn't have the best of equipment out there. So I take his entire battalion and I personally, on a whim, outfit them at no cost to the government with the best equipment out there, the absolute best equipment out there. You know, if we had a bunch of units that were privately funded like that, what would our department? Now, this is getting okay. This is a little insane, and you know about this. It's like they say the rich men don't go to war, and when their kids do go to war, they end up being, you know, like correspondents or on the Marine newspaper in Vietnam or something like that. That they try to protect the kids as much as possible to put them in nice areas. I saw that. I personally saw that happen to a low-level politician's kid in Afghanistan. How he was babied the whole way through because he was a politician's kid.
At the time, they were called the millionaire recruits or the New York swells. That you know, and he famously outfitted himself and his men by privately purchasing 2 rapid-fire Colt machine guns. He did die, but he did not die of combat injuries. He died of the fever, like malaria or yellow fever, at the end of August. So he died during the conflict, but not from battlefield injuries.
That's still kind of a battlefield injury. If you ever, you know.
Well, I know. I mean, you know, it's amazing the difference in times and the difference in the country, you know, where they all had a purpose and they all, Roosevelt had Indian scouts, he had cowboys, he had the Tiffany types, and then, you know, he bound them together, and you know, they used to have reunions after that. And, you know, actually, you know, there's, it's kind of immortalized in Citizen Kane. And, you know, a lot of people feel that William Randolph Hearst had something to do with our involvement in the Spanish-American War, and that's what they used to call yellow journalism, that he promoted it and he made sensational stories, and he had a yacht and he would, you know, sip, liquor.
He spun the stories. He's much like today, because I don't think it's changed very much. All right. Because I don't really think the Fourth Estate ever existed in any significant way that kept the first 3 estates in check. I don't think they did. I think what they do, rather than keep them in check, is what you said, yellow journalism, that they control a narrative and they make the first 3 estates basically work for them. All right? So they create a narrative. They don't report all the facts, which they should. You should report all the facts and let people make up their own mind. They report the majority of facts that fit their narrative. All right? And maybe a few things. I saw it, I'm not going to say it because I'll be screaming into the radio, but I saw it extremely recently where immediately they couldn't, a reporter could not help herself but to be anti-police in a really bad situation, just be anti-police. And you don't think she's doing it, but it was very subtle, right? It was a psyop. It was her timbre of voice and everything, and I'm sure she's manipulated her way through life doing that, but not through any good journalism, all right? Not through something that says, I've gathered up all the facts. Here are the facts in front of you, all the facts that I have, all right? Maybe I haven't found them all, but I found everything I had, good or bad, is here. Here are the pros and cons. I'm laying it out. Via these pros and cons, I put down a narrative, or I put down my thesis, and I says, based on all this, this is what I think occurred. But I didn't say I knew for a fact that occurred, because I'm not an eyewitness to it, right? But I said, this is what I think occurred. Now you have all the facts there, and you can make your decision. But if I only list the facts that follow my narrative, right? And I leave out all the facts, I says, well, because I think this happened, the rest of those facts become immaterial. Even though they're facts, they become immaterial because they don't address my facts. And it comes true, right? Now, the people don't see this other stuff, and they go, well, it must have happened that way because these are all the facts, and all the facts point to that. But that's not all the facts. Those are only all the facts that I listed. There are all the facts, then there's all the facts that I list. And people make the assumption that I am listing all the facts, but I'm only listing all the facts I want. So now once you're able to critically think and say, this guy, this Tubman guy on the radio isn't telling us everything because he has an agenda. Once you're able to say that, oh, well, that's Tubman's agenda, and you go out and you check all the facts and you find a bunch of facts. I'm not talking theories. I'm not talking I wishes. I'm not talking any of that, or it could have happened, things. I'm talking you find all the facts and you still come up with the same decision that I made based on all those facts. You're a critical thinker. If you come up with a different thing, you're a critical thinker. But if you only accept a journalist's presentation, you are not a critical thinker. You are a puppet. You are a programmed robot of these people. They tell you what to think. You say, oh, they're listing all the facts, which you should know they're not. Or you're too lazy to go get them for yourself, and you make up your mind that that's right. That's a problem. That's what becomes a problem there. And unfortunately, we see a lot of things where, and then the only time they come out with other so-called facts is when they want, we establish something like, I'm going to say it here, Christopher Columbus was a man of his time, right? George Washington was a man of his time. Thomas Jefferson was a man of his time. George Washington was from Virginia, right, Paul?
Right.
Thomas Jefferson was from Virginia, correct?
Right.
And Virginia was a slave state.
Right.
So they had estates either inherited or whatever and came with that. And now everyone's saying, well, they weren't really good people because they owned slaves. But they were men of their time. So you want to go and destroy them and tear down all their monuments and everything because suddenly you want to make these things bad people because you have an agenda? Yeah, for 200 years, they were fantastic people. Suddenly they're bad people. Okay. Because someone told you that, and now all these people are acting up. Well, these facts weren't available before. They were. All these facts were available before. And people just said, well, that's a man of their time. People are going to say things that we do.
It reminds me of something I saw years ago where, they were talking about Napoleon, and they would say the cruel barbarian is on the outskirts of the city. And they would say that the enemy is approaching the walls, and then as soon as he got in, the emperor is here. So it's all Remember, it's all a matter of timing, and it's all who's getting what, and it's all who's zooming who. It's all a matter of manipulation, and who manipulates the best looks the best, and it's just really sad,
We used to, the War Games Club in high school, this is a long time ago, and it really wasn't so much a War Games Club as it was a Risk. We should have just called it the Risk Club, because after school, we would play Risk, which is a world domination game. But we had like 4 guys, and you could go up to 6 people, right? You could play 6 people on this, but we would have 4 regular players, and we all knew each other's tactics. But then we would grab kids out of the hallway to play Risk, right? So we would have 6 players. And the guy that would win would be the guy that can manipulate the new guys into, quote, fighting for him, or I'm going to be your ally and everything. And he uses this other guy to weaken you. And as soon as there's a chance to take out the other guy and get his cards so you get more armies, right? You take out your ally. Boom! You manipulated him, you set him up, and you did it, and you're going to win the game. And it wasn't a skill thing. It was your mental manipulation of this other kid because all four of you knew that you were going to backstab your ally sooner or later. We all knew that, right? So we had to get new guys in there to backstab. I played in a tournament that they had and went out there, and there was me and this other kid I didn't know, right? Then there was a husband and wife, and there were two brothers, and one of the brothers was a couple years older than the other one. And I immediately looked at it, and I go, the husband and wife are going to be key allies until the end, right? Then it'll be just between them, all right? The brother and the little brother are going to be key allies until the end when the brother will take out the little brother, right? And I tell him, this guy, I says, look at this. We have to team up. We have to be absolute allies until the end, right? Because otherwise, these guys are definitely teaming up on us. And if we try to fight as individuals, that's it. And this kid was like, no, I'm going to win this. I'm like, And the first one he attacks is me. I get taken out of the game first. I'm like, oh well, I wasn't going to win. Without his help and support there, I knew I wasn't going to win. But he attacks me first. And then he gets taken out. Says, these guys, they don't care. They're brother and brother, they're husband and wife. You're nobody to them. Who you can manipulate, right? Who you can manipulate. This guy was just, you can't. You can lie to dumb people and they'll believe it, and that's how you manipulate them. You can tell the truth to dumb people, they won't be manipulated. They like to be lied to. They like to be told they're smarter than everyone else. And when we come, okay, so next week, Spanish-American War, if we run out of information on that, the Mexican-American War, all right?
Yep.
So those.
You mean the punitive expedition into Mexico?
The punitive expedition into Mexico, yes.
Yep. Everybody, remember the fallen and have a happy Memorial Day. And remember, it's more than just barbecue and picnic. It's to honor the people that went before us to make us free.
One quick question, Paul. Did they consider the fallen at the Alamo to be U.S. veterans?
I only know that we claim 1,100,000 fallen since the Civil War. That's all I know.
All right, I'll check if they're listed as actual U.S. fallen, because they fell for Texas, not for the United States.
Right. Which is the only state that was its own country.
Republic, yeah.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you.
Neighborhood. Swing by today and keep your ride running.